going to be interested in local Everson history. This is not area-wide. This is local. We're talking to a man who was born, raised, and spent his life here and knows everything about almost everything, because he's been in charge for a lot of, he was mayor and many other roles he's played. And member of the Nooksack Valley Reformed Church, and I learned to play basketball in that church when it was a fine arts building at the Nooksack Elementary School, high school. So I know the building even before he was born. So
I doubt that.
I didn't know it personally, but my mother knew it at that time. So we're going to listen to Matt tell some tall stories, and he knows them for sure. Matt, go.
Well, I guess I start out by saying I'm Matt Lagerwey. I was born in Montana, and I went to school in Montana for the first 3 years of my life. And every morning we sang a song. I live in Montana, I wear a bandana. My spurs are of silver, my pony is gray. As I ride over the ranges, my luck never changes. My foot in the stirrup, I gallop away. Yippee-yi-yi-oh, get along little doggies. Don't you know that Montana will be your new home? We sang it every morning. I haven't forgot it yet. That's been a few years ago, because right now I'm 86 years old. So that was a few years ago. And we moved to Washington when I was 8 years old. I lived near Billings. I was born in Pompey, Spiller, Montana. And
where did you move to? You moved to Nooksack?
We moved on the Hopewell Road,
Uh-huh.
the dead end down by the river.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go fishing with just a line and a hook in the river.
Yes?
Used to catch a few fish too. Yeah. Anyway, I lived Everson rural route all my life. Even though I went to school in Linden, I lived in Everson, Route 1, I think it was.
Yeah, the Everson Post Office covers Nooksack and Baker and Linden schools.
Yeah.
So students will go to 3 different schools. Live in Everson.
Right.
Have a legal Everson address.
I've had Everson address all my life.
So where did you start school then? In Hopewell?
In
You
Hopewell.
went to the Hopewell school?
Yes. That's where I went to school. In 3rd grade. I finished the 3rd grade there. And I went to Hopewell for one year. And then I think I went to about every school in the county. My folks moved every year, I think, until I was about 15 years old. And anyway, then I finally moved to Everson, the city, and I became mayor. I started out on the city council for about 6 months, and Vern Hogan was mayor, and he, for some reason, retired, and so they made me mayor. And I ran for re-election twice, and I won both times. Then I retired, and halfway through my 3rd term, when I turned 65, I quit. I resigned. And
So what did they do while you were a mayor? What did they do in Everson while you were mayor?
We had a big flood in 1991. And the first flood we had, I was in Hawaii. I came home and I said to my wife, "Looks like we had a flood while we were gone." Next day we had another one. So I got in on the second one. And after that flood, we finished the dike. My memory's kind of bad, but I think the WPA or something like that had started a dike at the bridge. And so after the flood, I hired some guys. We got the material from the Swift Creek, and we finished the dike over to the Everson Road. We rerouted the water so it wouldn't come through town. And anyway, during that flood, we actually had water in the city hall. But after that, after I built the dike, we never ever had water uptown again.
Were you aware when you took it over that the Corps of Engineers decided Everson is the place where the water should go over the banks?
Right. And I told them...
They built dikes all the way down to there.
I told them we'd rather share that water with Linden. So we did. We sent it to Linden.
So after you got through, we shared it with Sumas.
And Sumas.
And the Canadians didn't like it too well.
No, they didn't like it at all.
I didn't like it very well either. Being from Sumas.
Right.
The one thing about that flood is it shut down all Trans-Canada rail and highway traffic.
Right.
Because Sumas Lake formed again.
See, Sumas is about...
The pump went out on the Sumas Creek, and the lake started to form again, and it covered the road and the railroad. And the Canadians told us that if we didn't keep our water in the river, they were going to build a dike on the north side of the boundary, and we'd keep all the water here.
Yeah.
The lake would be on our side of the boundary instead of on their side of the boundary.
And I told the mayor of Abbotsford that he couldn't do that because that's where the water's supposed to go. And he didn't like me very well, I tell you that. But I told him that. I said we was going to send it to Sumas in Canada because they built a dike over there to keep it over here.
You sent it to Sumas right down Main Street, right down Cherry Street.
Yeah, but you guys are 40 feet lower than we are.
Very low.
Abbotsford area is about 80 feet lower.
Oh, the Abbotsford is lower than Sumas?
Oh, yeah.
But the cause
50 feet lower than.
the cause of that flood mostly was though that the pumps failed. It wasn't that the river, that it flooded over so much the Nooksack, it was the pumps failed pumping the water into the Fraser. Am I correct?
When the Fraser gets high, the floodgates close, and then they have to pump all of the drainage coming from our side into the Fraser because otherwise it would flow from the Fraser this way.
Right.
And they don't want that to happen either because it will do the same thing that it did this time.
Actually, the old lake bottom, Sumas Lake bottom, is at sea level.
Is it sea level?
At the bottom out there, I've been out there, I believe Matt too, many years ago, and they showed us, it was a drainage ditch out there in the middle. They said, bottom of that ditch is sea level.
Really?
And Sumas is about 30 feet, so.
Yeah.
Nooksack
And Everson's about
85.
80.
Everson's about 80 feet.
Yeah.
Sumas about 40.
Well, I always figured 50 feet. People say, well, why does the river run north? And I said, well, it's 50 feet lower. What do you think it's going to do?
You know,
as soon as it gets over here.
You know, I'm on the County Flood Advisory Committee, and I was one of the original members with Matt. And something new we've just learned in the last 6 months or so that geologists have figured out that up to 300 years ago, the Nooksack ran to Canada. It's just
Right.
been in the last 300 years that it's come down and gone into first Lummi Bay and then Bellingham Bay later.
Yeah, Red River's the original
Correct.
flow
Yeah.
of the Nooksack, once it shifted from Canada. Went out
It's,
the Red River,
right.
and then it was channeled where we know it now.
Even the Indian legends have it running north. It's an oral tradition. The only thing we can figure out is there was a big ice jam in the river, and it broke through the dike going west, and once it
Yeah.
got over into the other drainage, it stayed there. But if you look at the what happens to the river here, it changes course and tries to change course every year and go north again. Every time it gets high water, it tries to go north again. And so we have all kinds of channels out here. That's what happened when they almost lost the sewage plant out here.
Yeah, it's washing quite often there at the Emerson Road. The county and the Corps of Engineers has spent probably $1.5 million in the last 10 years keeping the river from going to Sumas.
Yeah, we've had lots of stories about flooding along the
Oh, yeah.
But this is river bottom land, and
Anyway.
it's got to get cut pretty easily.
Since we built that dike, all we did was put the water into the floodway, kept it out of downtown Everson.
Yeah, we have pictures of the 17 flood, which is the 17, the 50, and the 90 were the three big floods in the town. Then they used to, well, it's about belly deep on a horse. At the
Yeah,
corner right here. So
I know. I remember seeing those pictures.
yeah, they're hanging on the wall around here somewhere.
So
Somewhere.
was it the 91 where all the bridges went out? Because
Mhm.
I know I was marooned in Nooksack, all the bridges, Linden, Everson, Deming, all those bridges washed out.
Right.
That was in 90?
Nugent's Corner went out in '89, the others were
Well, there was some time when I know there was no way I could get anywhere except to
And
Nooksack.
Nugent, the only bridge that we get to is Nugent's,
90.
because it was closed at Acme, it was
Wasn't
closed at Sumas.
I thought it was close
It's
everywhere.
closed at all the roads from here, all the roads from Everson north were closed because the river was running across them.
And I know that we were marooned.
So,
I
and
remember.
Everson, of course, was one of them was going across. So we went north, or went south to the Nugent's. We could get across there until the approach went out. When the approach went out, then
Mhm.
we were stuck over here to the water.
Right,
river
that's
went
what
down.
I'm thinking of then, because there was a time when I couldn't go anywhere, I was just marooned in the middle of.
That was 90, or 91, I can't remember which.
Sure.
89 Nugent's.
Got a question?
At the same time, when that flood was going on, when the post office used to be just down the street here,
Yeah.
I remember some kid was wearing a pair of hip boots, walked into the post office, and he was getting his mail, and he looked down, there was a salmon there, and he caught the salmon, and took the salmon home.
Inside the post office?
Yes,
Ah, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah,
He opened the door and it swam in.
yeah,
I knew I saw salmon swimming up Washington, but I didn't ever know they were in the post office.
yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
But anyway, since we built that dike, things have changed. And actually, they named the dike after me, believe it or not.
That's a Lagerwey dike, huh?
It's Matt Lagerwey dike at the courthouse.
Good.
That was the best thing we ever done in the
Why
county.
did your dad decide to leave Montana and come out here?
This was a land of milk and honey.
Yeah,
That's what they told us, and which it was.
that was Depression days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
So was he a
was,
farmer? Was he
Yeah.
farming?
my dad was a farmer. He raised sugar beets.
Oh, beets. Yeah, we had a lot of sugar beets growing here
What was the big one?
100 years ago.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them in Montana too. Yeah. My older brothers and sisters, when they moved out here, everybody was after them to work for them in the sugar beets because they knew a lot about them. I was just a kid yet.
Yeah.
I'm still a kid, but
A little bit older kid.
a little bit older kid.
So did you stay on the farm then?
Yeah, I did until about 1950 or something. I went to California for a year and a half.
Mm.
I worked for the power company over there. And I came back here. Best thing I ever done. My wife got homesick. Daryl, my son Daryl wasn't born yet then. He was born after we came back. That's been a few years ago.
Good. So you were around when Kale's closed their operation
Oh
down.
yeah.
Were you growing for Kale's at the time?
I would raise beans every year. Yeah.
Well, back when your dad raised sugar beets, did he deliver the sugar beets over by the Northwood store west to the processing plant?
No, he raised sugar beets in Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where was the processing plant, did you say?
Where Ratter Farms is now. That used to be a sugar beet factory in the back.
Ah.
I remember going to the sugar beet factory in Shepherd, Montana.
Uh-huh.
And when I was just a little kid, we used to like to ride with my dad in a truck, put the truck up on a deal, and then a hoist would tip it back. They didn't have no dump trucks, so they tipped the front of
Truck up, yeah.
the truck up and dumped the beets.
They left you stay in the cab?
Oh yeah, we loved that. Way up in the air.
You didn't try jumping out?
No, they never dumped us out. Just the beets.
Yeah.
Anyway, then years later, I belonged to the Lions Club,
Mm-hmm.
and the library here decided they wanted to do an edition, and they was just going to put a little edition. So the Lions Club said, "Oh, we'll help you, but you got to make it bigger than what you planned." So I think right there was the wall. We built everything over that way on here, and I was in charge of the edition here at the time for the Lions Club. And I happened to be mayor at the same time, so the city kind of got involved too.
That wasn't a conflict of interest to be in charge of the construction and be mayor?
I hope not. If it was, we didn't know about it.
You certainly could get around the permit process, couldn't you?
Oh yeah.
Or maybe you didn't need a permit, I don't know.
I don't remember. That's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
How many years ago was it we done that?
Is that 90?
90, yeah, somewhere in the early 90s. Yeah. So it's been a while ago.
Yeah.
But I remember we have a bunch of pictures here. That used to be a cement wall, or we started out with sledgehammers. First of all, we built a wall inside it to hold the ceiling up. Then we knocked that wall out with sledgehammers.
Mm.
The Lions Club did.
You've got some good pictures of that. I got those. And
Yeah.
it was 1997.
97?
Yep. And we're enjoying it still very much. Thank you.
Is it still big enough?
Well, it's wonderful. I can't imagine not having that extra space.
Yeah. It was pretty small. I think this used to be the children's room, didn't it?
The original building was just this, and then what is currently the children's room was added on, and then you added that addition.
Matt, were you mayor when they added the children's room back here behind you?
No. Clinton Macbeth was mayor then. And he He told me one day when he seen me, he said, you should be mayor someday. I didn't think I ever would be, but yeah, things happen.
How many people were in Everson when you,
About 1,800. I think it's over 2,000 now.
were you there when they annexed Trendale then?
No,
They'd already annexed
it
Trendale?
already annexed Trendale. I think I was mayor from 1987 till about 95. 8 years anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember they were having trouble with finding non-flood land to run subdivisions on before they annexed Trendale.
Right,
So all the new development went down that way because it was up on the hill.
right.
Yeah, Hogan's developed some of the other ones, and
Yeah.
they ended up being in an underwater part of the time.
I don't know if they still are or not. I don't think they are anymore. Not after we rerouted the water.
The water goes down Johnson now, doesn't it? It goes out around.
Right,
Yeah,
right. It don't,
because of the Lagerwey dike, huh?
right.
Well, that's a really a claim to fame out there.
Yeah,
You moved the river,
I did.
and the Corps of Engineers let you.
Well, yeah, it was kind of odd. The Corps of Engineers came to Everson one day, and I told them what I wanted to do. So they showed me how to do it. They drew it all out for me.
Wow.
How to build a dike,
Mhm.
how much slope to put on, and things like that. I remember we sat in the back of a van parked out here, and they drew that up for me in the back of a van.
Mm.
So I had the support of the Corps of Engineers and those people.
Right.
Canada didn't like it at all, though. So, but that's how that went. We, Dennis Shaw sitting back there. He worked for the city at the time. We hired some local truckers to haul a bunch of, to build a dike.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name, the guy that hauled most of the dirt in there.
Mm.
But he was a local guy, I remember that. I don't remember names very well anymore.
Yeah, I understand that.
For some reason. Not because I'm getting old or anything like that. I don't
So
know.
did you graduate from Nooksack then, or Linden?
Pardon?
Where did you graduate from?
I graduated Linden.
Linden.
Me and Jim Noterboom
Ah,
were transplants.
and then you became a mayor of Everson. I didn't think they would permit a Dutchman to be mayor of Everson.
I didn't either.
You broke the barriers.
I did.
Uh,
Later on, they asked me if I'd be mayor of Linden. I said, I can't be. I live in Everson. But if I'd have stayed in Linden, I'd have probably been mayor of Linden.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
the gal who head of the Chamber of Commerce in Linden said that she wished I lived in Linden, then I could be mayor over there. I was man of the year one year, and that's when she told me that. So, yes, sir.
I know you're Dutch because I'm Dutch as well. but I do know that you used to live on the Northwood Road, right?
Right,
So you were very close to Linden then.
I was. But that was still Everson route, though.
And And at that time, were you a carpenter?
Right. I was a carpenter by trade. Built a lot of houses.
In county?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Linden, Bellingham, Sumas. I don't think I ever built it. I didn't build any in Everson.
Were you the contractor or you just worked for contractors?
Both. I done both. I ended up doing mostly finished work. And for a hobby, up until I couldn't do it anymore, I built cedar chests. Some really nice ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave most of them away. I probably built about 20 of them. I gave most of them away for charity. They were sold as much as $900. So I was pretty proud of that.
Did you have many codes to obey in those days?
Were
you a code enforcer in those days?
No.
You built without permits?
When I first started, we did. Later on, we had to get permits. Yeah, had lots of fun. But I know now that everything they done was for the good. Because they didn't build too good when we first started. As far as earthquakes and stuff like that.
True.
So.
Of course, we haven't had any big earthquakes either. The only one I remember is 48. So.
Yeah, right. But they're waiting for the big one, though. I built here about 10 years ago, out where I live now, and I had earthquake-proof everything, and flood-proof. So everything is done. Back then I thought it was kind of silly, but now I know everything was done for the good.
You didn't worry about flood insurance in those days either, did you?
No, we do now.
Plain.
Right.
Build it up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's been quite an experience for me. I never ever expected I'd be mayor of Everson.
No, that's. I don't think Vernon did either.
No, I'm sure not.
There were people who didn't like Vernon in this town, so I was surprised he ever got elected mayor. So.
I'm not going to say anything about that.
Well, his dad's the one that developed his reputation in town.
Right.
Vernon just worked for his dad, so. But,
right.
you better not say too much. He is my wife's cousin, so.
Really?
Yeah, so.
You're.
And he married my cousin, so yeah.
I better not say anything then. Everybody's related. It seems like everybody's related around here.
I used to tell people that they were around the town, if their family was here in 1900, we're related.
Right.
It's a pretty small area, actually.
Yeah, you don't dare say anything about anybody because they'd be a relative.
That's true. And my son married a Linden girl, so he doesn't say too much in Linden either.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not Dutch, you're not much.
Yeah. Well, I told him that if he kept going to that Linden Skateway, he was going to marry one of them tall Dutch girls.
Right.
And he did. She's 6 foot tall.
Uh-huh.
So.
I remodeled I remodeled the bowling alley down there in Linden.
That was a great center of attraction for a long, long time.
That stairway that went downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
I put that in with a shovel. Shoveled all out into an elevator, up into a truck.
Ah.
So I know a little about that that library, that there bowling alley and stuff.
Yeah, we don't have bowling alleys anymore.
We don't.
I mean, like we did then.
No.
It,
But back then
people had their television and the internet, all that sort of stuff to entertain.
Yeah.
They don't need to have all this other stuff.
I guess not. No.
So what other stories do you know that you think we ought to hear?
Well, let's see. I know a lot of stories. Some of them I can't tell.
Yeah, that's true. I know you've gone to a few you've been involved in coffee classes around town, so
Yeah,
I know you know a few stories.
I do. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce for many years, and I was the head of the chamber. And I'm a lifetime member of the chamber. I don't think they know that now, but I am.
What was their primary goals in Everson? The chamber.
The chamber?
The Chamber of Commerce, yeah.
Mostly to get on the internet.
Ah. But what were they when you started years ago? They were just to promote business in town?
Yeah, mostly. And later on was the internet.
Were you on before Uncle Phil quit? Business in town? My Uncle Phil Mays?
No,
He was before you.
he was before I was here. Yeah, he was a Chrysler dealer, was he? He sold Chryslers.
Right.
I remember him. And I started out, I farmed over on the Everson Road for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit that. I became a builder, a carpenter. I worked for B. Cole to start with.
Mm.
We built houses around Linden.
Did you build subdivisions or just build individual houses?
Individual, just custom. Later on I joined the union. I worked out at Arco. And I had a good job out there. The only good part of that job was payday.
Yeah. So what have you seen change in say with the Hopewell area where you moved to originally?
Hopewell, I started out it was one room schoolhouse.
What year were you in? What years were you in Hopewell?
About 1938 to 40, somewhere.
Probably 42, but that's when they consolidated. Yeah. And then did you go to Baker then?
No, I went to Linden.
Then you went to Linden. That's when you moved to Linden.
When I moved to Northwood Road.
Ah.
So I went to Linden.
Well, that's changed since you were there.
Oh yeah, I went to school grade school at Meridian.
Ah.
We lived
When you were on the Northwood Road?
No, Hemi Road.
Ah.
That was the Everson route too.
Northwood was pretty rural, wasn't it, when you were there? There weren't the berry farms and all that.
Oh no, all dairy farms.
And a lot of woods.
Yeah.
A lot of woodlots. Yeah.
So is Everson.
Hmm?
So is Hopewell.
Yeah, right.
A lot of Indian land. And my dad, when we moved out here, he cut a lot of firewood off the reservation.
Ah.
Made a few bucks doing that.
Yeah.
Raised a few beans for Kale Cannery.
Did you work at Kale's?
I did.
Most everybody did, didn't
I remember I cut my finger one time on one of the machines that went in all the beans.
You flavored the beans.
I flavored the beans. No, nobody probably ever knew it, but part of my blood was in there.
Did you work in the cans? You cut it on cans?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was sharp. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know the can details.
yeah. I think everybody pretty well works at kale
Yeah, Kale's employed a lot of people,
at one time or another.
plus all the farmers that grew products for it.
Right.
Because they were canning all the way from June through November.
Yeah, it used to be a big place. It's too bad they closed down.
Yeah, that's what happens when you sell the place off and people don't know what they're doing.
Then I remember when they tore when the Everson Bridge, the railroad bridge went out, some kids started on fire. We had to tear it down. And later on, we rebuilt the other bridge, the state did. That bridge belongs to the state. And I remember that I went to, I think it was Olympia, and they promised us that they would widen the river when they put the new bridge in. And when they came down to it, they didn't widen it. So when I was mayor, I stopped construction on that bridge, on the bridge, until they widened it out. We had quite an argument over that, but the state finally admitted that they promised me that.
Was the railroad still using that bridge when it burned?
Yes,
So they had to stop running. They never ran
that stopped it.
That stopped it.
And they tore all the tracks out. I remember when they tore all the tracks out.
I remember when Cyrie's barn got hung up on the bridge in '50.
Who's?
Cyrie,
Oh yeah.
that 60-cow barn went floating down the river and got hung up on the bridge. So they had to blow up the barn to get it under the bridge.
I don't remember that.
That bridge took a lot of punishment because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
upriver from the highway bridge.
Yeah. Lots of things happen. I think we built up the water plant while I was mayor. Dennis Shaw was running that, I think, at the time.
Yeah, that was a
Do
pain.
do you remember how much they widened the new Everson Bridge compared to the old one?
They widened it quite a bit.
Like 20 feet or was it more
There's
than
no more down, I think.
that?
Sidewalks.
Anyway, that's when we sent the water to Linden.
I know.
The old bridges were about.
I remember we had a big,
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of the width of the river though, they widened the river.
Oh.
yeah, we did, on the north side.
What was the reason for widening the river?
To send more water to Linden. I think. But that was a question I asked him. I said, why does Everson have to take all that water? I said, we'd like to share some of it with Linden. So we did. But that was one thing I could never figure out, is why Everson was designated to take all that water. You know, we had a stretch here, we were not allowed to build any dikes. Linden could build dikes, but we couldn't. I never could figure that one out. So we started building some dikes, send a little word to Linden, Sumas, Canada. So that kind of straightened that situation out a little bit.
I remember the bridge was a really good thing because it got all the sandbars between here and Linden cleaned off.
Right.
They couldn't do it. They
Well-
allowed them to quarry the sandbars in order to put fill in for the bridge. And, but the trucks kept running, and until all the sandbars between here and Linden were clean, they couldn't leave any holes in them. They had to grade them all the way down level. But there's huge amounts of gravel built up, and they got them all quarried down, and a lot of that gravel went elsewhere.
We had a big log jam just below the bridge too, and then we took that out. That log jam. We was lucky we done that when we did, because a few years later they wouldn't allow us to do that. So,
Well, Matt, I remember going across the old Nooksack Bridge here at Everson, and it was planks, and I remember I could see the river between the planks, driving across. I remember that.
that was before my time.
I remember
mu-
that.
You must be older than I am. I didn't think anybody was older than I am.
They wouldn't have allowed that sort of, Matt wouldn't have allowed that sort of bridge to exist in his Everson.
No,
He would have taken care of that.
they'd already changed it before my time.
When did the bridge come down?
Oh, golly.
95.
85?
80,
95.
95. Yeah, somewhere there.
They moved the bridge, they took the structure elsewhere, like they did Nugent's? Or
No.
We dug,
They did demolish it.
just,
Nugent's bridge they moved.
Yeah, and maybe you think the Hannigan Bridge too, that's up on the middle fork
yeah,
there.
I think they moved the Potter Bridge too. I think
Yeah, they just put a new one in there
Yeah,
last year.
I think they
so,
took the
yeah.
old bridge, moved it up someplace else.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because they can't build those kind of bridges anymore.
no,
So the bridges existing, they enjoy having because they can put them around smaller streams and such that.
And actually, the Potter Road Bridge, they just took the old one out about a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And when they demolished it, they found out that the foundation wasn't even fastened to the footing. So
That's
they were
about-
lucky it didn't go downstream.
that's about the way the railroad bridge was here in Everson.
Yeah.
When we finally pulled it out, it was rotten. So it was a good thing those kids started a fire in it. Because
Which kids it was?
I don't know.
You paid them, didn't you?
It wasn't me.
That didn't happen under your rule, huh?
It
People
did.
paying people to burn bridges down.
No,
That wouldn't have happened.
I didn't pay them. No,
No.
but it's a good thing they did, though. I think they saved the train from going into the river.
Yeah.
I really do.
Actually, Matt, here a few years ago, I can't divulge the name, but I know one person that did accidentally start the fire on that bridge.
You do.
Yes.
Accidentally.
Accidentally.
This one or the other bridge?
Well, I'll say accidentally.
Huh?
Now, what were they doing that it was accidental?
I never did know who they were.
Well, I think in the old days, usually kids went behind the barn and smoked.
Oh,
And I think that was part of it, and things got kind of carried away.
yeah. Could be.
How much?
I think maybe it was you.
How much did they lower the grade after they at Everson? I heard it was 3 feet.
On the bridge.
The old railroad grade was higher, and whenever when they put
Right.
the bridge in, they lowered the grade.
They
Do you
did.
know how many feet it was?
I don't know, but I know I got understated about that because they promised us it'd be higher. It ended up it was lower. So I told them, I said, you guys better be there to shove the logs under the bridge when they come floating down the river. I don't know if they ever did or not. But I don't think we ever had a flood like that again. My voice is not too good, so you guys have to excuse me on that.
So there were no scandals under your reign then, huh?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, what would we remember that happened under your reign that might not be what you would have approved of?
No. I remember there was some people that didn't like me that apologized to me. Every one of them came and apologized to me afterwards and said that they were wrong. So I was pretty happy about that.
Were you mayor during the Superfund cleanup?
Pardon?
Were you mayor during the Superfund cleanup that there was in downtown Everson?
The Superfund cleanup of the
Oh, yeah.
You were mayor during that time?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. It took forever to clean that up.
I know.
And I finally said to them, I said, boy, you guys sure take a lot of time doing this. And they said, yes, we work at glacial speed. And don't expect us to work any faster. And they finally got the, but I think the three different guys started that. Two of them never ever finished it. And that's when I got on about it. I said, you guys working all the time, you never get nothing done. And they said, well, we promise you we're going to finish it this time. And they did. They finally got it done. It took about 10 years. But I remember the parking lot that we have behind City Hall. That was where all the contamination was. And I finally talked them into giving that to the city for a parking lot. And they said as long as that's covered with asphalt, nothing would ever leach out anymore. So it has to be kept as a parking lot. You can never build on it.
Now, if they didn't remove the contamination underneath, they covered it.
From the
Or
transformer.
where the parking lot is.
See, the transformer plant used to be over there.
Could you describe what that was exactly for some of us that don't know? What was it called? The super?
It's a Superfund.
Well, it's
Yeah,
Superfund.
site.
They
Describe the history of that.
They rebuilt transformers for years here.
PCBs.
Yes.
You're still living too, aren't you?
I think so.
I think
The
so.
odd thing about that is the same, like individual that was behind the, the whole PCB, well, I think he was the one that was basically behind the whole thing, but anyway, he stored some of that same stuff right next to where I built a house, and I didn't even know it was being stored in that shed until a number of years afterwards. So it was kind of strange, so I don't know how those two things connected together, but I just remember that there was all that flap about the Superfund, and there was people that came out to that shed alongside of my house.
Right.
And were looking around in it, and then that's when I found out about all that. So, yeah, it did take a long time for anybody to move on anything.
Yeah.
Because once we found out there was that kind of transformer stuff in that shed alongside our house, of course, we wanted the ground around the house tested and stuff, and that took a long time before anyone did that.
Right.
Did they find any contamination in the house?
No, not in the house,
Around
but
the house?
around in the shed, yeah.
Just around the shed?
Yeah, and in the shed itself, because there were some transformer
Yeah.
things in the shed.
I remember Benny Klein said, we used to put that stuff on our face for Halloween, and none of us ever got cancer. So could never figure out what, and of course, they had the 10 acres over there on the Mission Road.
Right.
what I thought was interesting is water tables at 22 feet on that thing. And they never found any PCBs in any of the wells around there, and yet they went down 48 feet to remove material. So, and they also, where the parking lot was there beside the restaurant, they
Right.
took out the parking lot and then went down 4 feet, I think, and then they said, we're gonna cap it anyhow, so probably there will be no contamination
Right.
getting any further.
As long as,
So, that was the story there, yeah.
So what about the house just across the bridge? The person that owned the transformer place owned that as well, and those little apartments as well, and he used to take the waste oil and used it for heating in those places.
Right.
From what I was told.
That oil,
Used to be a council.
oiled the floors in most of the stores in town,
right,
including the grocery stores. So, and many driveways, there was dust oil on most of the driveways, that's where they got rid of the oil. But you gotta remember too, that the federal government's the one that required that to be put in,
Mhm.
transformers.
The only thing I know that is odd about around the edge of the perimeter of the shed that had the things in it, plants either wouldn't grow properly or they would grow in a distorted way. It was weird. It was really
Really?
strange. That's what first made us want to know what was inside that shed.
Now, oil makes a good fertilizer, but it takes a while to break it down.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
boy, that's about all the stories I know.
Okay, put a wrap on it.
Should we, tell Matt how much we paid him?